Hello everyone, it's me Luthfia. Today we are going to learn about teaching by principles. There are 8 principles of second language learning. Those are automaticity, transfer, reward, self-regulation, identity and investment, agency, interaction, and language culture. Let's discuss the principle one by one. Automaticity. This principle highlights the importance of meaningful use of the new language through communicative interaction. There are some guidelines for maintaining automaticity in the classroom. The first, make sure that a major proportion of classroom activity is focused on the use of language for purposes that are as authentic as a classroom context will permit. The second, practice exercises and explanation dealing with the grammar, vocab, phonology, discourse, and other forms have a place in the adult classroom. Don't overwhelm your student with a focus on form. The third, when you focus on your student on form, your goal is to help them to notice form, to modify or correct errors when appropriate, and ultimately to incorporate that information into their language use. The fourth, fluency activities in which you deliberately do not focus on forms may help students to attend to meaning or to accomplishing a task or to unblock their over attention to form. The fifth, automaticity is a slow and sometimes tedious process. Therefore, you need to exercise patience with the student as you slowly help them to achieve fluency. The second principle, transfer. Meaningful learning will lead to better long-term retention than rote learning. Language learners need to understand the language that they are hearing and using. Moreover, the topic should be interesting to them. There are some guidelines for maximizing transfer in the classroom. The first, become acquainted with your student backgrounds, interests, personalities, occupation, hobbies, likes and dislikes, and ground classroom activity on those individual characteristics. The second, when introducing new grammar, vocab, or discourse feature, review previously learned material on which the new material is based through brainstorming or clustering activities. The third, as you teach one skill area, say, listening connect what students are learning to other skills such as speaking or reading. Fourth, avoid the pitfalls of rote learning. Don't overdo grammar explanation, drills, activities that have no clear purpose, and tasks that are unclearly understood by the students. The third principle, reward. Human beings are universally driven to act or behave in anticipation of a reward. The most powerful rewards are those that are intrinsically motivated. The behavior stems from needs, wants, or desires within oneself and self-rewarding. So, in the teaching and learning process, we'll have much greater chance for success if the teacher gives reward to the students. It will arise the student motivation in learning because the learning becomes more fun, interesting, and challenging. There are some guidelines for implementing reward principle in the classroom. The first, provide an optimal degree of immediate verbal praise, encouragement, and acknowledgement of good work as short-term reward, just enough to keep them confident in their ability. The second, capitalize on the energy of cooperative group work in which students are given opportunities to communicate with each other and ultimately to feel proud of their accomplishment. The third, display enthusiasm and excitement yourself in the classroom. If you are dull, lifeless, or bored and have low energy, you can be almost sure that it will be contagious. Next, give your students some choices in types of activities, content, or subject matter so that the student feels some ownership in their language development. The next principle is self-regulation. Nowadays, the students are demanded to be autonomous learners, in which they control their learning based on their own pace, and self-regulation is the key ingredient of being autonomous learner. So, in learning the new language, the students should regulate their own learning by taking responsibility to achieve their goal in acquiring the new language. There are some guidelines for maximizing self-regulation in the classroom. The first, teacher can help even beginners to develop a sense of autonomy through guided practice, strategy training, and allowing some creative innovation within limited forms. The second, implement activities in the classroom that allow creativity but are not completely beyond the capacity of the students. The third, encourage students to set some goals for their self-regulated learning, number of vocab words to learn and try out each week. The fourth, as much as possible, help your student to become aware of their own preferences, styles, strengths, and weaknesses, so that they can then take appropriate self-regulated action in the form of strategies for better learning. Next principle, identity and investment. Learning a new language brings a sense of belonging and identity within the culture of the language. Language learning time should be invested wisely in activity that result in a real language acquisition. The guidelines for optimizing identity and investment in the classroom are outline display a supportive attitude to your students. Give your student credit for the many abilities and talents they already have, even though they feel somewhat incapacitated as they struggle with a new language. Factors in learners' identity development in your decision about whom to call on, when and how to give correction feedback, how to constitute small groups and pairs, and how taught you can be with the students. The next guidelines is giving your student opportunities to make choices as much as your curriculum will permit. The next principle is interaction. In the teaching and learning process, the teacher should engage the student to actively communicate by using foreign language in the classroom. And how to maximize interaction in the classroom? There are some ways that the teacher can apply in the classroom. The first, give ample verbal and nonverbal assurances to the students, affirming your belief in the student's ability. The second, your activities in the classroom would therefore logically start with simpler techniques and simpler concepts. Students then can establish a sense of accomplishment that catapults them to the next, more difficult steps. The third, create an atmosphere in the classroom that encourages students to try out language, to venture a response, and not to wait for someone else to volunteer language. The fourth, provide reasonable challenges in your techniques, makes them neither too easy or too hard. Next, help your student to understand what calculate risk taking is. Let some feel that they must learn out any old response. Response to the student attempt to communicate with positive affirmation, praising them for trying well while at the same time warmly but friendly attending to their language. The last principle is lingua culture. Lingua and culture are inseparable. The meaning of language is often tied to the custom and value of the cultural community. There are some guidelines for incorporating lingua culture in the classroom. First, discuss cross-cultural differences with your student, emphasizing that no culture is better than another, but that cross-cultural understanding is an important facet of learning a language. Second, include among your techniques certain activities and material that illustrate the connection between language and culture, especially those are more salient for your particular context. Third, teach your student cultural connotation that will enable them to increase their interactive use of foreign language, including politeness, humor, slang, small talk, devices to keep a conversation going, and how to disagree with someone but still respect their right to opinion. Next, screen your techniques for material that may be culturally offensive. Oh, there is still one principle of second language learning, that is agency. Agency, which lies at the heart of language learning, is the ability of learners to make choices, take control, self-regulate, and directly pursue their goals as individuals within a social cultural context. Teachers are called on to offer appropriate, effective, and pedagogical support in their students' struggle for autonomy, development of identities, and journey towards empowerment. That's all about the principles of second language learning. If you have any questions or comment, you can write it in the comment section below. See you in the next video. Goodbye.